Thank you. Okay. For anyone who just joined, welcome to the Public Landscaper Workgroup meeting on small off-road engines. I'm again Navashni Mitchell. I go by Ash, an air pollution specialist at the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. I'm joined today by several of my colleagues, Manisha Singh, Chief of the Quality Management Branch, Christopher Dilbach, Manager of the Testing and Certification Section, who is my supervisor, Jenna Ostad, Matthew Holmes, Catherine Garrison, Michelle Dunlop, Jordan Odom, and Nicole Lambenicio, who are in the testing and certification section, and Vicky Hanks, Dylan Seidner, and Haley McGlasson from the Mobile Source Control Division. We will start with a recap from the last meeting, have presentations by CARB, hear landscaper experiences with zero-emission equipment, hear about power management systems from Still and Greenworks, have a panel discussion on incentives, and hear about advanced clean fleets and clean truck check. We also have time for questions and answers. Please feel free to put questions in the Q&A. We will answer questions from the Q&A and call on those with raised hands after the presentations. Before we begin, let's have a quick recap from our previous meeting. We have received a handful of nominations for businesses to serve on the panel of landscapers and have confirmed with those businesses that they are willing to serve on the panel. Some of those panelists have shared in previous meetings. Our panelists will participate in the landscaper experiences with zero-emission equipment and incentives section. We are still accepting nominations. You may review our presentations from previous meetings on what we envision for the panel. We encourage landscapers to let their legislators know that they want more incentive funding. We received questions regarding incentives for larger businesses. These are available in some air districts through the Carl Moyer program. Representatives from several air districts are here today participating in the incentives question and answer panel. We have received some questions about electrical infrastructure and the potential need for upgrades to electrical service. A strategy to reduce the need for additional electrical circuits is the use of power management systems. Multiple chargers can be plugged into these devices, and one can cycle through charging several batteries unattended, with charging stretched out over a course of time. We have also invited Greenworks and Still to speak on smart charging technologies. Greenworks and Still both provide smart charging solutions to help with charging many batteries. As a reminder, this work group meets 4 times a year. And next, Jenna will start us off by discussing the rules for landscape equipment. Over to you, Jenna.
Thanks, Ash. Small off-road engines, or SOAR, are spark ignition engines with rated power at or below 19 kilowatts or 25 horsepower used in non-stationary equipment. SOAR are primarily used in landscaping equipment, including lawnmowers, leaf blowers, trimmers, and small chainsaws. Other small off-road equipment, such as portable generators and specialty vehicles, are often powered by SOAR. All diesel and stationary equipment are not part of the SOAR category. The SOAR rules apply to manufacturers for producing new engines which need certification in order to be sold in California. The rules do not have requirements for equipment owners, so equipment may continue to be used and repaired. And certified equipment in stores may continue to be sold. The amendments to the rules became effective January 1st, 2023, and newly produced engines are subject to emission standards of 0 in 2 phases. Starting with model year 2024, most new engines are subject to emission standards of 0. New pressure washers and with engine displacement greater than or equal to 225 cc and portable generators are subject to more stringent emission standards. Starting in model year 2028, all SOAR, including pressure washers and generators, are subject to emission standards of 0. Some manufacturers have the flexibility to certify some engines through model year 2032 by using credits. As long as they're available, equipment owners may continue to purchase certified engines offered in stores. And I will pass it over to Jordan now.
I will give an update on CARB staff's outreach to landscapers to encourage them to participate in this work group and attend meetings such as this one. We have previously covered the many outreach activities we've worked on. We have contacted more than 206 cities and counties in California to request business contact information for landscaper, gardening, tree trimmers, and lawn maintenance businesses who hold business licenses in those cities and counties. We also obtained a list of C27 licensed landscape contractors from the Contractors State License Board. We networked at several landscape expos and sought out dealers to pass our information on to the small businesses. The culmination of all this was a list of 29,000 addresses to send invites to landscapers to participate in our landscaper work group. We will continue contacting businesses licensed in cities and counties in California. We would also like to solicit your input on how to reach more landscaping businesses to invite them to participate in our landscaper work group. Next slide.
Thank you, Jordan. Next, we have asked landscapers on the panel to share their experiences with Z and incentive programs. We have Eric Diaz of Alpine Line Landscape, Eric De La Torre Marquez of Agave Green Landscapes, John Mueller of Mueller Landscape Inc., and Chris Angelo of Stay Green here today to speak. Let me find you guys. Give me 1 second as I search through. Okay, John, I found you and unmuted you. Please go ahead and unmute and you'll be able to speak. Let me find Chris. Okay, Chris, I've unmuted you, so go ahead and unmute on your side and you'll be able to speak. And I'm looking for Eric, but not finding you. Okay, I don't see Eric and Eric, so let's go ahead and have John and Chris go ahead and share your experiences. Let's go over to the next slide, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Ash, thank you for having me tonight. This is pretty awesome. I'm glad to be here. My name is John Mueller. I am the founder and president of the Mueller Landscape Corporation in San Diego. We are basically a home service business, and our business model basically takes labor hours, and we develop those hours with systems, procedures, and training. And we enhance those hours, and then we take those hours and we sell it to the client. Converting over to the battery equipment really added a lot of value to those hours. So in 2021, we started exploring battery-powered equipment as part of our commitment to this quality. And we outfitted a Chevy Express van with an RV solar system, an external battery, and a multi-port charger from Steel. We used the Steel AP300 batteries and all their tools that were compatible with those batteries, like the mowers, the weed trimmers, the hedge trimmers, and the blowers. And we tested this thing out for about 6 to 8 months. On most days, we handled 8 to 12 residential yards, and we found that our setup could recharge about 3 batteries during the course of the day. And to meet our demand, we equipped each crew with 15 AP300 batteries, which worked well through springtime through springtime, it didn't, as the increased hours during the day, we found that we needed to charge a battery here and there. But the sweet spot for us was 15 batteries per crew. So in 2022, we started purchasing vans, and we've equipped 4 dedicated crews with the vans with all battery equipment. And all the equipment is with the steel and the AP300 batteries, 15 for each crew. Crew training on this battery equipment, there was some training involved. You had to learn how to maximize the battery life. This included using the eco modes on the mower and the half throttle adjustments on the weed trimmers and the hedge trimmers to conserve power, teaching them that they did not have to rev this motor between point A and point B. And probably most importantly, remembering to count the batteries at the end of the job before they loaded and went to the next job. Don't leave any batteries behind. Challenges that we've learned. There were challenges along the way. One of these was battery management. Occasionally, like I said, batteries would get left behind at job sites. So we had to get them to get into the habit of counting those batteries every single time. Proper handling and organization of those batteries, making sure that at the end of the day, when they were taking the batteries out of these vans, they were not trying to hold 15 batteries or 6 batteries in their arms. We actually have little carts that they put the batteries on to wheel them to the wall where the chargers are, so nothing gets dropped. And we had to make sure that the batteries were stored in a place out of the sun, obviously. The vans really helped with that. None of our vans have windows in the back, so that really wasn't too much of an issue unless they left a battery out in the sun. Then that would be a problem. But the biggest thing I think for us is the value that it brought to our customers. Saturday morning, I could be sitting out on my patio drinking coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning. And where I live on top of a hill. And I hear gardeners on Saturdays across the valley where I live. And it's annoying on a Saturday morning. It's annoying on a Sunday morning. I can only imagine what it would be like in a residential neighborhood, hearing various gardeners coming and going all day long, all week long, especially if you're retired. You might hear the sound of the mower or the blower 4 houses down, and then a couple hours later, you hear somebody else 3 houses down. And then the next day, you got the same thing. This equipment is so quiet. It's quieter than a house vacuum. I was at a job site last week out in Point Loma. It's a high-end area of San Diego. And it was a pretty decent sized house, a big yard in the backyard. And I walked out there, I was videotaping my crews working. And it dawned on me, I'm watching these guys push this mower, and I could hardly hear it. And I was probably standing about 50 feet away. And I thought, wow, for a consumer, for a client that's retired, and these people were retired, they don't ever have to hear us when we're there. And I was thinking, if everybody was adopting this equipment, the quality of life in residential neighborhoods would, I think, improve, because you're not hearing equipment all the time. And you do now, and you hear it on the weekends. And, I can see where that would be pretty annoying for certain segments of the population. So adopting the battery powered for our crews, for the 4 crews that are using them, they really like it. It's less fatigue on them. They're not pulling cords all day trying to start that engine. It's eco-friendly. It's a high quality experience for our customers. And I never get any complaints from my employees using this equipment. everybody's very happy with it.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Gotcha. Thank you, John. That's good to hear.
You're welcome.
And then if Chris, could we hear a little bit about your experiences?
Yeah, sure, Ash. Good
Thank
evening,
you.
everybody. My name's Chris Angelo. I've got a business that operates in Southern California. We're a B2B landscape contractor, primarily doing commercial landscape maintenance services. And so we've had great experience using battery equipment for almost a decade now. We were early adopters because of some of the city ordinances, particularly in the city of Los Angeles and some of the surrounding cities in LA County. So we've got a lot of experience with the equipment. I thought I'd go through and share some of our most recent experiences as it relates to the benefits, the challenges, and some of our charging strategies and what's worked well for us with the incentive program and where we see some opportunity. And so some of the real benefits are, like John mentioned, the absence of emissions, number one, and then the noise reduction, which is really enhances the health of the user and the acute community itself. So that's a real major benefit for our team and for our clients. The equipment maintenance has become extremely minimal, converting from small combustion engines to battery. And so the frequency of servicing and replacement parts is greatly reduced. So you're not doing that anymore. So what we're finding is we're looking for new, different tasks for our small engine mechanics to help us with in the yards that we have. And then I'd say, lastly, there's two additional user fatigue is greatly reduced due to the reduction of vibration that transfers through the equipment when you're powering it. And that's been very helpful for our end users. And then client satisfaction, lastly. I mean, when you hear a battery operated piece of equipment hum relative to a gas powered one, it greatly enhances the quality of life in that atmosphere where we're operating in. And so those are the benefits that we've seen at Stay Green. Some of the challenges still using the zero emission equipment that we're having is the lack of charging infrastructure in the yards or in the field. And so we're a large operator. We've got 11 locations, and we've got to make sure our yard locations or facilities have power, utility. And I know a lot of our smaller landscape operators may just have fenced yards where they may not have power drawn to their yard. And this could be something that would inhibit their ability to actually convert to electric from gas. And I think that's probably pretty common and typical throughout California, where that's going to be a big obstacle. So, for instance, we have added 200 pieces of battery equipment this year, outfitting about 20 different crews with these pieces of equipment. And primarily, we are heavy in certain yard locations where we're taking these back and having to power them. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do so at this particular point in time. The cost of charging infrastructure as it relates to gasoline is also another challenge for us. It just right now seems to be more expensive for us. The cost of batteries are still expensive relative to gallons of gas. We're getting through that with some of the rebates that I'll talk about, but that still is a barrier to entry, I think. And then downtime to charging, where fuel you'll just have to tip and pour as opposed to waiting for something to charge up if you don't have real solutions on keeping batteries at full charge. Lastly, is the human element of using this equipment. Old habits are hard to break. And so John alluded to when you get electric in your hands, you've got to throttle it a heck of a lot differently because it is fuel. And so when you pull the trigger, you are burning fuel. And so how far you pull that trigger back has an impact. And laying off the trigger when you're walking from point A to point B is really important. So you're retraining some habits that you may have been doing for the last 10, 15 years out in the landscape, where you've got to actually learn how to use the equipment differently. And so it is a mind shift switch. But we're getting through that. Our charging strategies for our batteries, we adopted Crest equipment this year because Crest had solutions to charge out in the field with what are called cyber tanks. And so we'll put a cyber tank that will be able to charge multiple batteries very quickly, 10 minutes or so out in the field while we're on a route or driving from job to job. And so we've been able to eliminate downtime by doing that, which has been very productive for us. And so again, infrastructure at the yard is something that we're really trying to figure out what the best solution. There's nobody really has a good understanding of that yet. As I explore with our dealer network, with other contractors, and with CARB, we're looking for those solutions, but they're not just out there yet. The infrastructure is behind the technology of the equipment currently. The incentives for us have been great. Like, if the incentives were not out there, I don't think it would make economical sense for many contractors to switch. It would be an emotional feeling. It wouldn't be an economic feeling. And so the rebates that we're receiving through the AQMD, some of the manufacturer discounts, have really encouraged us to adopt this and to really own the Z program. And so those are some of my thoughts. And I know we'll go to Q&A, Ash, but thank you for allowing me to present.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris. And just to take it back to John, I was curious if you used any incentives or like incentives programs that have helped you.
Yeah, we did. We took advantage of the incentive to basically get all the equipment we currently have. We have enough equipment for 8 crews. We have 4 that are actually using them, and I'm planning on adding 2 more crews in 2025 and then 2 more in 2026.
Nice, thank you. So I guess we can go to next slide, which is like the questions. So I'm going to open it up to folks to ask questions about landscaper experiences. So folks, if you guys have questions for our landscapers, please put it in the Q&A or raise your hand and I'll take turns asking from each side. And let me look if there are hands raised. So here, I'm going to go to one of the Q&A that's open. So the question is from Larry Rilera. For the business owners, do you also have electric vehicle fleet?
So this is Chris Angelo. We currently do not have any production vehicles in the electric fleet. And so, but we intend on transitioning. And as you know, for certain size fleets, we've got to convert 10% of our vehicle fleet into electric over the next 2 years. And so we are looking into that. That's another challenge that we're faced with on charging all of our battery SOAR equipment, our landscape deck mowers that are now have to be electric. So when you buy a 60-inch deck mower, that's now electric, charging that, and then the vehicles overnight. So we're concerned that we may not have enough power at the street and or in our electrical panel to do all of that. Charge our vehicle, charge our 60-inch deck mowers, and then our 50 batteries that may be in the location. And so, again, we're looking for solutions on that. But we know there's a lot of smart people out there that are working on these solutions. But we do not currently have electric production trucks in our fleet yet.
Yeah, this is John Mueller talking now. And along with Chris, what he said, that's true for us as well. We have a 3,000 square foot warehouse and we have 9 vehicles. And if we had to charge 9 vehicles every night, it would be impossible. There's not enough power coming into the commercial building to do that. So that's going to be something that is going to have to be resolved if there's if we have to go to electric vehicles at some point in the future. Like Chris was saying, there's not the infrastructure for that yet.
Gotcha. Thank you, John and Chris. And I'm looking at raised hands, and I have a raised hand from Vicky. So go ahead and ask your question, Vicky.
Thanks, Ash. It was just a quick question for Chris Angelo. Thank you for sharing your experiences with the electric equipment, but I think you mentioned using a tank to charge some of the equipment, and I was just wondering if you could talk more about that because I want to write it down, like what type of equipment you use to charge
Yeah,
your battery.
so there's several there's several manufacturers out there that provide battery operated solutions, and one of the newest manufacturers is known as Cress, Kress. They have some technology which is would be similar to a generator. It's an electric generator that sits on the back of your truck or your trailer that you mount, and you charge 4 batteries while you're out in the field, and you can charge them several times while you're out in the field working. And they charges it within 10 minutes into almost a full charge. So you're able to charge on the go. When you get back to your office or yard at the end of the day, you plug these tanks into your power outlet, and then it recharges the tank or generator overnight. And so those are very costly at this current time. But and there aren't any AQMD or any incentives, government incentives for these tanks yet. So we've been really pressuring the manufacturer to help us make them more affordable through good finance options or discounts, and that's what we've done. I think one of these tanks is like $10,000, and that would be just for one route truck. So there is a significant cost to them.
Thank you, Chris. And
You're
thanks,
welcome.
Vicky. I see another hand raised, and this is from Richard Falcon. So I'm going to unmute. Oops, sorry. So I've unmuted you. Go ahead and ask your question, Richard.
Yes, thank you very much. Richard Falcon with United Latinos out here in Sacramento, California. I also added to the Q&A because I'm finding this discussion and listening to the two of you very beneficial as we at United Latinos try to prepare our very small business owners with this transition. And there are many questions that I have. In the Q&A, I did put a email address, hopefully to contact, because we've been trying to get a study done here in Sacramento so that we can see what are the challenges, what are the successes. We actually have some funding that is coming in to help us with those small businesses to help them with the transition. But I'll tell you, it sure would be great to have a conversation with the two of you offline just to hear and learn from you on what are the things we should look out for as we transition forward. So I just wanted to point out that I put my information in the Q&A.
Thanks, Richard. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, and I can share it with Chris and John as well, Richard. Okay, and it looks like our 5 minutes for this section of Q&A is up, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. but we'll have more opportunities for Q&A next. Okay, so now we're going to take a short poll. So please, I'll launch this poll. Let me go ahead and launch it. Okay, it should show up. So please answer the short poll that will show the audience composition. And then I will share the poll data when it's finished. Let's just keep it open, like maybe a minute more. And if folks can go ahead and participate in it, please. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll in a few seconds. So I'm ending the poll now. And I'm sharing the results. So that's what our audience looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing it now.
Recording in progress.
And let's close that poll. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so power management products can charge multiple batteries unattended. Several such products are shown in this slide. Next slide, please. We have representatives from Greenworks speaking today, and they will speak on their power management devices or smart charging. So Dan Sumner, I'm going to have you take it away next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Sumner. I'm the Regional Sales Manager with Greenworks Commercial Tools. I'm based in Southern California and manage the sales team in the Western US. I'll share my screen quickly here and have several. Looks like somebody else is presenting. I can't share the screen, Ash.
Let me, will it let you now? There we go.
Okay. So Greenworks is a company that's been around since 2001. The commercial division that I'm a part of has been around since 2016. And charging solutions is something that we realize is a really needed part of this transition from gas to battery. We have a very wide selection, probably the biggest in the battery world for commercial landscapers, everything from weed eaters and handheld blowers up to very soon a 72-inch mower and everything in between. With regard to charging solutions, our core thing that we have coming is a Energy Cube, which is hitting the market right now. We do offer a PDM system. I'll cover that shortly. A ChargeLink in-shop charging solution, which works for a lot of folks. And we also have a way to charge batteries with some of our ZTR mowers. With the Energy Cube, this device is 16.2 kilowatts of power. And the notion with this is that you would charge this overnight, kind of like what Chris was talking about with that other device, the Cyber Tank. Charge this thing overnight. You would take your energy with you during the day. 16.2 kilowatts is a lot of power. This is how it could work in a solution where you might mount this into a trailer, put this inside of an enclosed trailer. You can plug in your ZTRs to it. plug in 12 batteries in a caddy system, and you would park the trailer in your shop or in your yard, plug the trailer in like you would plug in a EV automobile, and it would charge everything overnight. You come in the morning, unplug your trailer, and away you go. Everything's ready to work. This is another picture of what that would look like from the inside. In this mock-up, you see there are 2 ZTRs plugged into this device and the caddies that are plugged into it as well. What this device has is 2 chargers for the ZTRs, 2 chargers to charge the caddies, and it's got 4G GPS, so you can see where it's at. If you wanted to see, hey, if my battery's charging overnight, you can log into the app, see that it's in fact charging your battery, see if it's done. If it gets stolen, you can see where it's at. You can have the cops find it and get it recovered. That's already happened 2 times that we know of, where the device gets retrieved if it gets lost or stolen. So very high tech. It does have AC output as well. So if you wanted to run a fan, a grinder, a radio, whatever, you could plug it into this device. With this, it is UL certified. So the technology we use for our ZTR mowers, our UTVs, and these energy cubes is an LFP system, which is UL certified. So it's very, very safe. The other technology that you see with lithium ion product is NCM, and that's not UL certified, and it is potentially, did somebody say something? Potentially a danger if you're not careful with the other style of batteries. With this, in 1 hour's time, you could get 6 kilowatts put back into the ZTRs. Our units have up to 24 kilowatts of power in the mower. So this would fill at 25% in an hour. So if you stop for an hour lunch, as an example, plug your mower into this thing, you'd get another 25% of the battery in that 1 hour. The longer you let it plug in, the longer or the more it's going to charge, obviously. But that'll give you another 5 acres of coverage with those big mowers in that 1 hour's time. So if you've got any range anxiety with the Z's, when you're having your lunch break, you can get another 5 acres of coverage out of it. You can charge many, many handheld batteries with this as well. If you don't want to charge the Z's, because with 24 kilowatts, what we see is users are generally coming in at the end of the day with 25, maybe 30% state of charge. So they're not using all that 24 kilowatts of power in their day. So with this device, you can plug in just the cartridge batteries if that's what you want to do. It'll charge 6 batteries in 30 minutes per caddy. So you get 12 batteries charged in half an hour. This talks about 36 core batteries charged in 1 hour with this device. This talks a little bit more about the 4G solution. It allows you to see where it's at, the state of charge, those kinds of things. You can charge this cube in 3 hours. If the cube is fully depleted and plug it into a level 2 EV charger, it would charge the cube itself in 3 hours, that 16.2 kilowatt battery. If you're plugging it into a regular 240 volt AC source, 3 hours, 120 volt, it's 6 hours to charge the cube. It's got solar input as well. So if you have solar panels on the top of your enclosed trailer, as an example, you could charge this thing fully in 10 hours if you depleted all the 16.2 kilowatts of power. If you have a 50 amp 240 volt circuit available, you could charge 2 setups overnight. The setup being the cube, the 2 ZTRs, and 2 caddies full of batteries. So 1 circuit would charge 2 crews worth of product. There is a solution that we have where during the day, if you have a facility that we can put solar onto the top of it, We have battery backup systems, kind of similar to a Tesla Powerwall, where you could take energy from the sun, put it into the power system, the battery backup system, and then in the evening, plug your rigs in, and you bleed the power off of those batteries that you pulled from the sun during the day and charge your system up that way. We do have a team that we can meet with users, survey your needs and what your capacity is at your facility, and come up with a suggestion of a solution, show you how many solar panels you may need, how many battery cabinets you need, that kind of thing to keep your crew all running. There will be a smaller version sometime in 2025, be a 10 kilowatt instead of a 16.2. We're looking at probably summer of 2025 for that solution. It would basically charge half as much product as the one we're currently selling today. Our next solution that we bring to market is what we call a ChargeLink in-shop charging solution. With this, in this picture, you'll see there's a green rectangular item. That's the charger we use for our ZTR mowers. That charger plugs into either a 15 amp 120 volt, or you can also plug it into a 20 amp 240 volt outlet. With that, this is like a daisy chain system. Each of these caddies that are shown here, it's kind of like those caddies have wheels on them. There's a handle on them. It's kind of like a luggage. You can roll those things around with 6 batteries in them and take it out to your job site. You can have 10 caddies of fully depleted 4 amp hour batteries, and they would charge in 10 hours. So you're charging 60 batteries in 10 hours or overnight off of one 15 amp 120 volt receptacle. If you charged with 240, it would charge in half the time. So this is a great solution if you have limited power. Charging 60 batteries kind of unattended overnight allows you to get much of your crew out and working the next day. We see frequently where people that don't have these kind of solutions might have chargers plugged all over their whole shop and in their offices and stuff, trying to spread the load and charge batteries. And then when the batteries are full, someone's going to pull batteries out, put more batteries in. This, you don't have to do that. You just put all the batteries in there and it'll charge the first caddy. When that's full, it goes to the next, and then the next, and then the next, until it gets to the end of the string. And if you wanted more than 10 caddies, you could do that. It could go more and more and more and more. There's no limit. But with the 10 hours for 10 caddies, that's kind of the overnight thing. That's what we quoted as doing. Another picture kind of showing a little bit more what it would look like. In this example, there are 5 in this daisy chain setup. Additionally, those caddies can be mounted onto the ZTRs. So I mentioned earlier that we see commercial landscapers come in with a state of charge of 25, 30% at the end of the day. So they're not using all 24 kilowatts of power that the mower has. With this solution, as the guy's out cutting grass, his caddy is charging the cartridge batteries that the other guys in the crew running line trimmers or blowers or hedge clippers or chainsaws, whatever, he's charging those batteries off of this device. And it also works for a sit-down unit. There's another picture of what the caddies look like. They do hold 6. They'll hold all the different sizes of batteries that we sell. We have 2.5, 4, 5, 6, and 8 in conventional batteries. We have some new batteries coming, which are 300 watt hours, 400 watt hours, and 530 watt hours of charge that these would charge. For those of you that were in the call, the last session when Richard from TOA was here, we are also offering the TOA device, the Power Distribution Management System. This is exactly the same thing that Richard presented last time. So it's just one more solution that we bring to market to help the users charge their product. That's what that looks like. So we covered that on the last call. I won't spend any more time talking about that. This is the batteries that we bring to market today. It's called the Optimus Core battery. It's a new technology. Typically, you see in lithium-ion systems, the batteries are a bunch of cylindrical cells that are all kind of soldered together inside the battery. This is different than that. This is a polymer, kind of a pouch that's in there. So it allows for quicker charging, more power delivery, longer cycle life, and they work better in cold temperatures if you happen to be in an area where there's snow on the ground.
Gotcha. Sorry to interrupt, Dan. We're at 10
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. Brandon can take over next. I will stop sharing.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we have representatives from Still speaking as well today, and they will speak on their power management devices or smart charging. And I'll have Brandon Glover present next.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Brandon Glover. I work for Still. I'm a regional sales manager that covers Southern California, Arizona, and Hawaii. So Still has been one of the longest companies doing in outdoor power equipment doing battery. So we'd like to talk about our charging technologies that we have. But to get into it, I really like what John and Chris had. There's a lot of benefits from moving over from gas to battery. Really, it's just the ease of use. There's just less vibration. It's more intuitive a lot of the times. It's very simple. You don't have to pull a cord. You're ready to go. And there's a better cost over time. It's a little bit of a struggle, especially without using the incentive programs, but over time it'll actually pay for itself just in fuel savings, and also with maintenance savings it'll actually save you quite a bit of money. Also, reduced emissions, so a lot healthier. You're not using it's not breathing in harmful pollutants, and just improving the overall air quality. The other one thing that I really like to highlight is that it's quite a bit quieter, especially when it comes to backpack blowers. And just to give you an idea, so every increase of 10 decibels represents a sound roughly twice as loud as the human ear. So sound is on a logarithmic scale. And to give you an idea on battery products, depending on where you're at, it's anywhere from like a 60 up to 300% difference between the gas. For just sound and health that way, it's huge. And so there are a lot of benefits, and we'll talk about maybe some of the disadvantages, but I thought John and Chris did an excellent job of talking about where the benefits are, because there is quite a bit of them. Just to give you an idea, Still invented the very electric chainsaw, and it was in 1926. It took two people to operate. They actually had to use a generator in the forest, and it was over 100 pounds. And the interesting thing is Still's kind of gone full circle. They started out electric, we went into gas, and now we're kind of going full circle now with coming into battery. And so a lot of the technologies that Still has done over the years, we've added to the battery products now. And just to let you know, we're a German engineered company, but most of the products actually is made here in America. Back in Virginia Beach, Virginia, we make over 100 tools, a lot of them being battery products. We produce anywhere from $4 to $5 million units annually, and we export out to 80 countries worldwide. So this is our biggest manufacturing. And the reason that we've done such a great job is just because of the quality that Still puts into the products. And also landscapers see that too. We are actually the number one selling brand of gas and battery handheld outdoor power equipment in America. Amongst landscape professionals. So we continue to innovate, and also just making good quality products that landscapers like. One of the reasons why we've been so successful is we have over 10,000 authorized Still dealers in the United States. These dealers can help if there's any problems, and we can get product right to them. And we also support you in the field and also them too. The other thing is we have over 500 dealers just in California. So, if there's anything, ever problem questions, you can take it run into one of our dealers and they can help you out. Just to give you an idea for battery, Still's actually been making battery products since 2010. So we started out with one unit, which was a hedge trimmer and a battery and a charger. And then going today, we have over 60 professional tools. That doesn't include our homeowner tools. And probably the next year, we'll probably double the amount of how much battery products we have. We have pretty much everything that you have in gas. We've also added lawnmowers and also zero-turn mowers and our stand-on mowers too. We're going to continue to grow the product range. But one nice thing about this AP platform that we've had since 2010, it really hasn't. The battery, at least the form hasn't changed. So I can take a battery from 2010, which I still have 3 of them at my house that still run, and I can put it in a unit that we just came out with today. And I can take a battery that we have today and put it in the unit from 2010. So we've been able to increase the capacity over time, and that also protects landscapers too. When you're using your products, that you don't have to worry about buying new batteries every couple of years. The other thing with our batteries is they're one of the best. This is probably the best thing that we have out there. They have long cycle lives, 1200 to 2500 before they start losing capacity. That's one of the best in the industry. They also have a great battery management system that I'll talk about. But really, when you're going out there and depending on what you want to do, you want to make sure you're selecting the right battery. And a lot of its time is its fuel, right? This is how much it's going to take to get the job done. The lighter the weight, the easier it is, but the less runtime it's going to have. So the bigger and heavier the weight, the longer the runtime. So you kind of have to pick what you would like, and you might have to sacrifice. But as the technology keeps getting better and better, we keep coming out with those technologies. But the other part of it is chargers too, because that's the big part of what we're going to talk about. The other thing is we love about Still is our no power compromise. So a lot of other competitors don't have a smart battery management system. So what typically happens is you use a machine, the volts drop out of your battery, and what happens as the volts drop, you lose power. Well, what we do on our battery management system is we actually increase the amperage, so your power stays the same power the whole time. And so that really just gives you great power. And especially for professional use, that's what you need. Only at the very end, you lose a little bit of power. And then the thing is we have the same power as gas. So that's the other thing that's been a complaint before is people using my gas unit doesn't have as much power. We actually have units that are equivalent, if not better, when it comes to trimmers, chainsaws, blowers, that you're getting actually equivalent to the same CC and the kilowatt power that a gas engine produces. Getting to some concerns though is people want to know, why does it cost more than gas? Once I buy everything, how do I charge it? And then do I need to change how I work? And I know that earlier John and Chris alluded about that, and we'll kind of address that. But one thing is does it cost more than gas? Yes, the upfront cost does cost more, and that's why using these incentive programs is awesome. That really helps with that. But if you had to go out and buy it at retail, we actually have a ROI calculator that I can put in the chat, and also you can go to stillusa.com and actually look at it. But there's also a fuel savings calculator. And this example that I have over here, if you bought almost about $10,000 worth of gas, and to get a battery equivalent is about twice as much money. But in about a year to year and a half, depending on how you look at it on average, you're actually going to pay for itself just in gas savings. And then over from there, you're actually saving quite a bit of money over the life of it. So there is some long-term savings. It's just there's the cost up front's more. But once you get your batteries set up and that infrastructure for charging, the cost to add another unit is not as much. Really, the other thing is once I bought everything, how do I charge all of it? And that's kind of what the premise of everything is. And these are just some examples of some people, what they've done. But really, you got to look at it 2 different ways. There's 2 schools of thoughts. Should I charge overnight or should I charge on the go? Well, overnight charging, there's a convenience that if I can charge everything at night, then the next day I'm ready to go. Also, when you're charging slower, it's going to optimize the life of the batteries. So it's going to put less stress on it, and you're just going to be more productive. On the day go charging, that's great if you can continue to go, because it's going to be able to have minimal downtime. And I know Chris talked about that. But some of the stresses on the battery for increased wear can actually generate heat, which can decrease the life of the battery. Also, some of these battery banks or battery generators that they've talked about can be very expensive. And just to give you an idea, if you bought just a regular like Still battery or different a brand OEM battery, and then you compared it to a battery bank, it can almost cost twice as much per kilowatt hour. So per watt hour. So that's one thing that you have to think about is the cost to charge during the day. Is it worth it, or should I just buy enough batteries to be able to charge through the night? And usually overnight charging for most landscapers, probably that's the best way to do it. And really what you need to know is what can I charge on my current setup? Most people here in America have a 50 amp circuit. Some of us have 20. And most of the chargers that we have, you can actually charge at least 2 on a 50 amp circuit. This is our 301 here at the very top. This is just our standard charger that we have. The 500 is actually a faster charger. It actually will pull a little bit more amperage that way. And then our 301-4, this one's unique because you can actually charge 4 batteries and you can put 2 of them on a 50 amp circuit or 3, and it charges in sequence. So it starts with first, and once that gets charged, it goes to the next, to the next, to the next. So it reduces the amount of circuits that you need to have. To give you an idea, with that 4-bank charger on a 50 amp circuit, you can charge 8 batteries in a 5-hour period. So, usually you can charge enough batteries overnight. But the thing is, if you need to scale up on your app, if you need to scale up how many you have, that's where you need to do additional, add additional circuits, which can cost quite a bit of money when you add sub panels and things like that. So what we've come out with here is a CM12. This is like the similar to what the TOA is, where it can actually manage the power. And so it's mountable on a wall. You can plug into 12 AC chargers with it, and you can charge up to 30 batteries in a 14-hour period. And it also has a smart management circuit in it. So it can detect the load that's coming in, and then it can give the right amps and to each charger to make sure that it's going to be charged in that time. There's LED status. It's really nice. So this is a setup, as you can see here over on the picture there. We've added 6 of those 4-bank chargers, and then on top of it, 6 of our fast chargers, which, if you're using like a backpack battery, you're going to want to be able to charge that faster. So this is a great way to do it, where it would cost thousands of dollars, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars to add more circuits. So you can use your existing setup, just plug this in, and then you're ready to go. And it's plug and play, and then you can scale as needed. So this is probably one of the best ways to do for landscapers without breaking the bank and getting into it. So there's solutions out there, not only from us, like there was from TOA, which is a good solution too. But having something like that without spending extra money, this is a perfect idea for that. A couple other things is the question we had was, do I need to change how I work? And really, if you're coming over to battery, it's time to kind of retrain yourself so you can maximize the efficiency. So maintenance is very big. There is some maintenance that are on battery equipment, not a lot, but making sure that they're maintained so they're going to have a long life. The other thing that's important too is the environment. Out in Palm Springs, it gets really, really hot, and some of the other desert areas. Leaving batteries out in a high temperature can decrease the life of the battery. Also, if it rains, it doesn't rain very often in California, but what it does, you want to make sure that you have IPX rated batteries and units, so you're not going to do any damage. And so knowing how to account for that will help extend the life of your equipment. And the biggest thing that John and Chris talked about is your performance of and runtime of how long you're going to actually be using the equipment. So your batteries equal fuel. So to maximize how much it is, we on Still, at least our equipment, and there's some other brands out there, use performance settings. And a lot of the guys who've used gas want to go as much power as possible and go as fast as possible. And a lot of the times there's a retraining where on a lower speed, because really with battery, you can run at a very slow speed and get just as much torque. So it's retraining and making sure that they can extend the life of the battery, which is the runtime out there, to go at it. And if you need extra power, they have those options there. So that's really kind of retraining those people. And by changing tweaking those things, you're going to get you're going to maximize the life of your equipment and also how much you're getting through the day.
Sorry to interrupt, Brandon. Yeah. Oh, we're at 10 minutes.
Yeah, and we're pretty much done. So as Still, we love to come out and help people. So if they want to do any product demos or free training, we're more than to come out and actually show you and help you with those things, because it's one of those things that it's not easy to just start doing battery, but we can help you with that. And that's all I have. So I'll turn that back over to you, Ash.
Thank you. If we could share screen again, Matt, we can get questions. Okay, so now we will take questions about the power management devices. And I will look at the raised hands and the Q&A. I do see that we had some more questions in the Q&A. So maybe we'll take those questions real quick before we start with this 5 minutes here. So in the Q&A, there's a question from Anonymous. Could John and Chris go into a bit more detail about the incentive programs they participated in to purchase the electric equipment? John and Chris, are you still there?
This is John. Yeah, I'm still here. Honestly, my equipment vendor is the one that got that set up for us, and they did all the paperwork. And that was a couple of years ago, so I don't recall exactly what was all involved. There was paperwork that had to be filled out, and we did it all through the vendor. So I think your best bet would be to go to your local vendor, and talk with them and find out what they have to offer. And if they don't have anything, then go find one that does.
Sounds good. Thank you. Next question in the Q&A was this is from Larry Rilera. For the daisy chain charges, do they charge serially, one charger at a time to full charge? Maybe Dan or Brandon.
Yeah,
can
so it's
help.
probably what I was talking about with our in-shop charging system. The way it works is it will fill the first caddy when the 6 batteries in that caddy become full. It senses that, and the switch will pitch the power to the next caddy in line, and then so on and so on and so on. So the first caddy gets full, then it goes to caddy number 2, then caddy number 3, then caddy number 4, until you get to the end of the chain.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm just looking if there's any more open questions here. I'm looking for open or hands raised. And I'm not seeing any hands raised at the moment. Let me see if we have any other questions. Oh, I do see a hand raised. It's Richard Falcon. I'm going to unmute you here, and then you'll have to unmute on your side. Please go ahead and state your name and affiliation and your question.
Yes. Thank you, Richard Falcone again, United Latinos. As I was looking, and one of you that was demonstrating the ROI and the cost of use over long-term, short-term, et cetera, et cetera. As we talk about charging specifically, do some of these graphs that we see on cost take into consideration the cost from the utility companies that you are charging from? And has that been studied?
Yeah, so if you go into the chat, we actually have this is Brandon from Still. So if you go into the chat, I gave shared the link with everybody. On there, you can actually put what your cost per kilowatt hour is, and then that will give you the time frame on the return on investment. So someone who has a cheaper kilowatt per hour versus in other areas, that's going to vary on how fast you can get your money back. So yes, we can also sit down with you too, and we can calculate that, and we have some spreadsheets to go over. But that's a thing that you can share with them, and that gives you an idea of how long it will take to recoup your cost back.
Thank you.
And this is Dan with Greenworks. I can add a little bit to that. SMUD in Sacramento has some of the lowest electrical rates in California. You're very fortunate to be up there. You pay very, very little compared to other parts of the state.
Thank you both for the information. Thank you.
And I see a question in the Q&A about South Coast Lawn and Garden Program, but I'm going to hold till we get to the incentives panel for that question, if that's okay, Esther, because we have a segment just for incentives Q&A. And I'm seeing if there's any other questions. I'm not seeing any raised hands. I'm looking at the Q&A. I'm not seeing any other Q&A. So if there's no other Q&A, maybe we can continue with the next slide. Okay, on to incentives panel. So we have invited representatives on our incentives panel to answer questions. The panel members include Air District representatives and CARB Moyer program representatives. So please raise your hand using the raise your hand feature or type your question in the Q&A, and we will take questions one at a time in the order they are received. But we'll prioritize spoken questions for this segment. Let me get my timer situated here. Okay, and let me introduce the panel members. So we have Vicki Hanks, who's an air pollution specialist for the Carl Moyer program at CARB. We have Yujin Tan, who is the program supervisor for South Coast AQMD. We have Brian Dole, who is an assistant air quality engineer for Sacramento Metro AQMD. And we have Stephanie Hitchman, who is a senior air quality specialist for San Joaquin Valley APCD. So let me have our panel members available, and we will look at questions received. Oh, gotcha. All right, so that was not a question for for the incentives program. They just wanted to share that South Coast has lawn and garden program. So actually, I have questions received in registration that I can ask here. So here's our incentive or funding questions, and I'll keep an eye on hands raised and Q&A. So the first question that I have is from Jason Peck from Mayan Climate Tree Service. And his question is, are there any incentives to purchase new electrical equipment? And I'll hand that over to the panel.
I don't mind chiming on this one. Hi, everyone. I'm Vicki Hanks with the Carl Moyer program with CARB, and there are incentives available for these zero emissions electric lawn and garden equipment. And we have some of the fine folks from the air districts here. So with the Carl Moyer program, we provide funds to the 35 air districts across California, and those air districts decide what equipment to replace in their areas. And so some of the ones that you see here today are some of those air districts that have successful lawn and garden programs that replace this equipment and provide funding for zero emission equipment. So there are incentives available to help with either residential equipment or commercial equipment.
Thank you, Vicki. I'll go over to the next question. This question is from Eric Diaz of Alpine Line Landscape. And his question is, how do these programs reach and incentivize small landscape business owners, especially those with only 1 or 2 employees?
I can probably chime in on that one. I believe you're located in Los Angeles, so you would be located within the South Coast Air Basin, which would be my district. And for us, we do partner with AGSA as part of our outreach, and they do go out and they have events in both retailers and in public parks and different areas and they bring out equipment where you can try out and test it out for yourself to see, and then they provide education and they pretty much show you what is the best way to maintain your equipment as well. So that's how you can feel, if you want one of the events, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll definitely be able to provide you with more information on that.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. This is from Ray.
Ash, can I add a little bit more to
yes.
that? Just also just so you know, in the lawn and garden chapter of the Carl Moyer guidelines, we do specify that air districts have the discretion to waive the 15% cost share for small businesses. So when we write these guidelines, we work with the districts, and that's the feedback as to how can we help small businesses. And so that's something that we made sure was in the guidelines as an option for small businesses.
Thanks, Vicki. So the next question is from Ray Gamino from Carrillo Outdoor Power Company. And he wants to know, will there be more funds allocated to CORE? And I think I can jump in here for the CORE question. For the CORE question, those funds for the lawn and garden, so the landscaper portion was given from the legislature. So I have not heard of more funds being given, so we don't know. But you can ask your legislators, or let your legislators know that more funding would be helpful. Next question. So actually we're running a little short on time, so I'm gonna stop going through the registration questions in the interest of trying to get to our next presentation. So I'm actually going to move a little faster. So maybe we can go to, so before we do that, thank you to all of our panel members. I don't see any questions or raised hands, and I don't see any Q&A. So maybe we can conclude the incentive panel and move to next slide, please. And for this slide, I'm going to have Dylan and Haley take it over.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dylan Seidner from the Training and Community Support section at CARB, and I'll be presenting a brief introduction on 2 regulations tonight, possibly 1, depending upon our time frame. But I'll be talking about the Advanced Clean Fleets and the Clean Truck Check regulation. So first, just a heads up that I've abbreviated today's slides to less than half of what our usual slide deck is. And so I'll be just focusing on a few elements that might be most applicable to folks here in this work group. I've also included some of the resources for locating additional information at the end of this presentation for each regulation. And if I could get these slides to maybe back up just to the first one, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, you can hit the next one. Thank you very much. Okay, so the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation, this is a regulation that has 4 components. And as I said, we're just going to focus on one tonight that we thought would be the most applicable to folks here at the work group. There are 4 components to this whole regulation. There is the 100% ZEV or zero emission vehicle component that applies to manufacturers. We've got requirements for drayage trucks, and we also have state and local government requirements. Next slide, please. Thank you. So first, what are high priority fleets and would they apply to your situation? High priority fleets, these are entities that operate vehicles in California, generally with vehicles that have a gross vehicle weight rating greater than 8,500 pounds. And they meet one of the following criteria, which you'll see there on the left as effective entities. But they'll either have 50 or more medium and heavy duty vehicles, excluding light duty vehicles, or they have 50 million or more in annual revenue. So that's entities that are operating vehicles with GVWRs greater than 8,500, and they have 50 or more medium and heavy duty vehicles, or they have more than 50 million in revenue. Next slide, please. First, I'm going to discuss the default compliance schedule here for high priority fleets, and that's called model year schedule. So to start with this process, you'd go and enter your existing fleet information and report it into our online trucking system called Truckers. This initial report is going to establish your fleet of existing vehicles and legacy trucks that will be in your California fleet. So high priority fleets had this initial reporting deadline of February of 2024 this year, but I did want to let folks know that they're still accepting the initial reporting for any fleets that may be qualified as a high priority fleet. So for the model year schedule, all new additions to the California fleet after January of 2024 must be zero emission or ZEVs. And then beginning in January of 2025, fleet owners must begin removing their legacy vehicles once the vehicle's useful life is exceeded. And the definition here for useful life is that after the vehicle exceeds 800,000 miles or 18 years from the original engine model year, whichever occurs first, and it's never less than 13 years. There are several extensions and exemptions to address the circumstances beyond a fleet owner's control. And you may also elect to switch to the ZEV milestones option, which is the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So the ZEV milestones option is just another alternative compliance option that's also available to high priority fleets, and it can be elected when you initially report your fleet in our reporting system. So compliance with this process is based on the percentage of ZEVs in a fleet from 2025 all the way to year 2042. And the ZEV milestone option allows the fleet to reach an overall ZEV milestone using any combination of vehicle types from the 3 different milestone groups in their fleet. As long as the ZEV milestones are met, fleet owners have a flexibility with the rest of the vehicles in their fleet. And that means that fleets can prioritize which vehicles to electrify and then can purchase combustion-powered engines if they meet the overall ZEV phase-in requirements. Okay, next slide, please. So we'll close this part of the presentation by letting you know that there are quite a few exemptions and extensions to ensure that fleets can stay in compliance, especially if they face circumstances that are beyond their control, such as delivery delay of purchased ZEVs, or if there are no vehicles that can meet the demonstrated daily mileage usage or energy usage needs, or if there are infrastructure installation delays. We have a full list of the exemptions and the extensions, so please see those at the Advanced Clean Fleets webpage and navigate to the FAQs. All right, next slide. Thank you. So finally, I wanted to mention the Advanced Clean Fleets Enforcement Notice, which is summarized on this slide. And I wanted to note that CARB encourages fleets to report and comply while the US EPA waiver is pending, and CARB will also accept requests for extensions and exemptions during this period. So please visit the link to view the complete notice and for more information on how this notice may apply to your fleets. Okay, next slide. So wrapping up this section, and Ash, I'll check in with you to see if you need me to go further here. But I did want to note the main email for Advanced Clean Fleets. It's there. It's zevfleet@arb.ca.gov. The Advanced Clean Fleets website URL is there, and that has all of our fact sheets, reporting, video training, reg documents. And then finally, I just wanted to plug the ZEV Truck Stop. And ZEV Truck Stop has a lot of great information if you're looking at building a zero emission vehicle fleet, and it also has links to a lot of the incentives and funding to do so. So Ash, I'll check in with you here.
Thanks, Dylan. I think we can go through Clean Truck Check quickly if we hurry and just like finish that bit up.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to save this for another time as an option too.
I think it's okay. We've only got 5 minutes. I don't think
Fantastic.
we have to QA end this. Let's just go ahead with Clean Truck Check.
All right. Well, I'll get on it here. So Clean Truck Check, if you could give me the next slide, please. So Clean Truck Check, it's a reporting and emissions compliance program for heavy duty vehicles. And it's basically to ensure that those emissions systems and controls are functioning correctly when these vehicles are out on California roadways. So it's a 3-step process to get in compliance with Clean Truck Check. The first one is to report your vehicles in CTC Viz, which is our online database. You'll then use that same database to go in and pay your annual compliance fee for each vehicle. And then finally, you'll submit a passing emissions compliance test. Next slide, please. So the types of vehicles that are regulated under Clean Truck Check, these are diesel and alternative fuel vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating that's greater than 14,000 pounds that's operating on any road in California. These vehicles must pass emissions compliance testings to operate in the state. And Clean Truck Check just overall is meant to be a similar program to California's light duty vehicle smog check program. That program currently does not include heavy duty vehicles, and those heavy duty vehicles are included in the Clean Truck Check program. Next slide, please. And just to note, Clean Truck Check doesn't mean only trucks. There's also just several other different types of vehicles that may apply to this one. So even though it's called Clean Truck Check, vans, buses, motorhomes, agricultural vehicles, vehicles that are meeting that 14,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating or greater, and fueling requirement apply. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, to get started with Clean Truck Check, the first step is to sign up for an account on the Clean Truck Check Vehicle Inspection System. It's also known as CTC Biz, and we've got the link there. And once you get your account set up there, you're able to report your fleet information for your vehicles and then pay the annual compliance fee for your vehicle or for your complete fleet. Next slide, please. Great. Okay, so after reporting your vehicles and paying your annual compliance fee, the next step is the emissions testing process. And for most vehicles, that's about 2 emission tests per year. The deadlines for these tests, the first one is going to be due by the vehicle's DMV registration due date, and a second test follows 6 months later from the DMV registration due date. Those emissions tests can be submitted up to 90 days prior to a deadline. So to give you an example on this, a vehicle with a registration due date at the DMV of January 2025, so January next year, could begin starting emissions test as of October 2024, because that's roughly 90 days prior to January 2025. Okay, next slide. So for onboarded diagnostics, otherwise known as vehicles equipped with OBD, emissions compliance tests must be performed by a Clean Truck Check credential tester using an approved, CARB-approved OBD testing device. Diesel non-OBD vehicles, so if they don't have an OBD system, they're required to complete a smoke opacity test and a visual inspection of the emissions control equipment, which is also performed by a credentialed tester. Next slide. So just a few notes on credentialed testers. Only credentialed Clean Truck Check testers can submit emissions compliance tests, with an exception for certain instances when there's OB tests that are submitted via telematics service providers that are approved by CARB. So the thing about testers is that anybody who completes the test, and that's a no-cost online training course to become a tester, and then passes the exam, can then become a credentialed Clean Truck tester. So that process is very simple. It just takes a few hours to complete the training and take the test. Once you've completed the test and received your credentialing, you can then perform compliance tests with CARB-approved testing devices. That means basically anybody could be a Clean Truck Check credentialed tester, fleet employees, owners, just testing your own personal vehicle, whatever the case is. And final slide here. Okay, so here's the resources for follow-up. That QR code goes to the Clean Truck Check program URL. And the primary email contact is there. That is hdim@arb.ca.gov. Looks like I got in under 7 o'clock, so I'll turn it back over to you, Ash.
Thank you, Dylan, and
Sure.
Sorry for rushing you. Where did the
No
time
worries.
go? So next slide, please. And if folks have further topic meetings that are related to soil, please send them in to us at landscaper@arb.ca.gov. Next slide, please. We have listed a few contacts for the programs we discussed here. If you have questions for us and didn't get a chance to ask them at the meeting today, please email us at soar@arb.ca.gov or landscaper@arb.ca.gov, and we have the contact information for the programs here. Next slide, please. Okay, the next workgroup meeting will be held tentatively on February 26th, 2025. And I'm sorry we've run out of time, but I'll hand it over to Christopher to close out the meeting and end on time.
Yeah, thanks, Ash, and thank you to all of our panelists and speakers and attendees for participating in this meeting. Hope it's been useful. And we do want to continue hearing from landscapers regarding these meetings, what you think would be helpful, what you think is working, what you'd like to see. And of course, if there are any questions you didn't get to ask today or that we didn't answer, please let us know if you have more questions and we'll get back to you on questions that we already do have. Thank you very much, everyone, and good evening.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.